This weekend, the Montana Wool Growers Association held their 139th annual convention here in Billings, Montana. And one of the industry leaders on hand this year was Montana's own Ben Lehfeldt out of that Lavina country. Of course, he's been a leader in the Montana sheep and wool industry for years, and his family has been too. More recently, though, he's become one of the officers of the American Sheep Industry Association, the current secretary and treasurer, Ben. And here at this convention, as it is across America right now, I'd have to think like one of the big topics for sheep producers has been this lamb market. Kind of a roller coaster ride coming off the record highs earlier this year, softened up a little bit. But hey, as we start to wind 2022 down, things have kind of come back a little bit.
Yeah, things are looking like they're picking up, and we predicted that this is going to kind of happen. You know, we're no strangers to these volatile markets in the sheep industry, unfortunately. We had a really good run for the last 2 years, essentially, before this kind of, fell a little bit through COVID. We had record prices for all of our lamb producers, so unprecedented there, and it's too bad we have to slip all the way down to the bottom again. But, we really feel like we've got our demand issues aren't a problem. We've got really good demand for our product in the U.S. Our supply issues, we've got less sheep in the U.S., so it's not those two things. It's some of these inflationary, some of this coming off of COVID, switching to more retail-focused product, which a lot of people bought through the COVID times, as opposed to before COVID when we were moving a lot of lamb through the white table restaurants. So it's a switch in the industry. We've got a lot of consumers, and there's a lot of bright spots coming forward.
You know, talking about that live lamb price, I mean, we have seen that resurgence a little bit, and just recently the USDA announced, of course, with the help and encouragement from the American Sheep Industry Association, lamb would be included in a Section 32 program. Talk about what that program is and why it's significant to sheep producers like yourself.
Yeah, it's sort of the one tool that we have in our bag in terms of American sheep industry, the ASI. So using this Section 32 lamb buy, try to move some of this product that may be a little overfinished, those type of things through our process to get things fresh. And that really essentially is going to relate to our lamb producers when our feeders, so we can keep that product flowing good. So we had a lot of interruptions in our infrastructure over COVID, labor issues, and we had some new plants opening. Not a great time to start a new business. So a lot of those things had factors in this. So I think the USDA looked at this and felt like this was something that might help the industry get out of it. We sure would have liked to have it happen about 6 months earlier, and work some of those products through. But it is the one thing we have to utilize within this. We don't like to go at it and do this real often. We felt like this is something we could do to help the industry and get things back on track, because we know we've got everything working for us in terms of consumers and our producers.
Yeah, the taste for delicious American lamb right here at home has never been stronger. You touched on some new processing plants coming online. I mean, just talk about where we're at with the industry as far as processing capacity, because we know during COVID, unfortunately, we lost Mountain States there in Colorado, but luckily a couple others have come on. I mean, are we adequately in a position to have enough processing capacity for what we're doing here in America?
Yeah, everything's changing a little bit. We've got a really big non-traditional ethnic community that's buying a lot of lambs. Some of them are buying a little lighter lambs, have a little different than we've been producing through our traditional markets. So that has interrupted that traditional stream a little bit. We're really happy to have that Brush plant, Brush, Colorado, a new plant. We've got San Angelo, Double J plant. So those are getting up there. They're trying to figure out whether fabrication or selling carcasses are the right mix, and then Superior is a big player. So we've got the capacity. We've got to kind of figure out our market, where those feeder lambs go, not be competing against each other at that point and causing ripples that might happen. So those are the things we'll work through as an industry.
Imported lamb has also been top of mind for a lot of producers. It's been an issue ASI has worked on and continues to work on. Of course, we're always going to see some imports coming in from Australia and New Zealand, but talk about the fact that now we're seeing some imported lamb coming in from Great Britain.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. We tried on the policy front to do some stop and study before this British kind of lamb, and it's not only the British side that it impacts, so some imports from Mexico and those type of things. So we want to make sure with this stop and study, our goal was, are we interrupting some health or some, are we bringing in some things that might hurt our industry and hurt our producers? We've always, we need more sheep producers in the U.S. We can't raise enough sheep right now to meet our demand. So Australia and New Zealand really look at this as an attractive place to market their lambs, and I think, the rest of the world is looking at that too, and that's why the British see this as they want a part of this American dollar. They want to be a part of our marketplace in terms of lamb. So it's a little frustrating. We have a quality product and we want to continue to move that, so we're going to continue to work on kind of protecting our producers.
So I have to ask you, I can't tell you how many times when I'm out and about in the public, somebody will always come up to me, especially when we're in grocery stores here at home. I mean, why? They always ask me, why aren't we seeing more American lamb in our meat cases locally? I do my best to try to explain the situation. You kind of mentioned it earlier. A lot of it's already spoken for, going into some higher-end restaurants, different type ethnic markets. But just maybe you can do a better job of explaining why we aren't seeing more American lamb being offered in our local grocery stores.
Yeah, there's the shelf space in those stores is pretty competitive. So, in the past we haven't had a lot of that space. If you look in a lot of our Walmarts, we do have some really good product out of Superior that has grown in the last few years. You'll see quite a bit, and well-priced lamb as well. Our target markets have always been in our population centers. So when you look in Wyoming and Montana and some of those, our lamb board hasn't targeted that because we got limited resources. So our main population of consumers is on the East Coast and West Coast, and that's continually where we try to really push that. But we're not against any Montanas and Wyomings eating lamb for sure. Well, we do our best, and you can find it, and we're working on. So Kroger made a big purchase of kind of the Safeways. We think there might be an opportunity to see more American lamb in some of our mid-states with that, because Kroger has always been a really big supporter of lamb, and we hope that continues, American lamb.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and you mentioned it. I mean, competition is tough at the meat case, and that's just what a lot of consumers don't realize, and it's not because industry groups like the American Sheep Industry Association isn't fighting for that space in that meat case. It just takes a little bit of time, and as you mentioned, I mean, with Kroger's acquiring Albertsons and Safeway, and it's going to open up the doors of some opportunity, hopefully. Just like everybody else in agriculture across America, Ben, 2023, we're going to be working on a new farm bill in Congress. I mean, what are going to be some of the highlights, I guess, and the priorities for ASI as we move towards that?
Well, now that landscape is a little bit settled as to what the House and the Senate are going to look like, we can kind of understand where our chairmanships are going to be. And there was a lot this year, not much happened on the Farm Bill, so now we'll kick into gear. We've got a really great priorities, I think, that really fit a lot of our political leaders back there, and fit our economy and our ecology with targeted grazing. So way back when Rodney Codd out of Montana State and a lot of his undergraduates and graduates worked on a targeted grazing book, and that has been really popular. ASI and PLC and National Grazing Lands have got together. We're rebuilding that targeted grazing group and looking at solar panel grazing. We're looking at wildfire grazing in California. We're still looking at noxious weed control with sheep and goats in Montana, and brush control. So we've got a really good book coming out, and we've got a really good story to tell that maybe we can make some inroads in helping new producers get into these new opportunities in sheep and goat industry.
Well, and also to help tell the great story of the U.S. sheep industry, you know, in San Diego earlier this year at this year's ASI convention, I mean, there was a speaker there that, you know, the livestock industry just takes a beating from a lot of folks in the environmental community that were kicking out way too much greenhouse gas emissions when truly it's to the contrary, isn't it?
Yeah, we're really, we're sequestering a lot of that gas. So we've got to do a better job of telling that story. And Land Board has got a great study that's just finishing up out of Michigan State University. That'll be coming out in January at our Dallas-Fort Worth convention. That will roll a lot of that out, and that'll really set a baseline for us to talk about that story of correct grazing, the things we do in Montana, and sequestering that carbon. And we're really the answer, not the problem at all. That we look at New Zealand, where we've got taxes on livestock. So these are the baseline things we need to get out there to just tell that story of what we're really doing as part of agriculture.
Well, we appreciate you for what you're doing and stepping back up to the plate and becoming an industry leader, a volunteer industry leader, I might add, not just here at home in Montana, but now as the Secretary-Treasurer of the American Sheep Industry Association. Of course, Ben will move up into that Vice President role at that upcoming ASI convention, as he mentioned, which is headed for Fort Worth, Texas in January. And you can get all the details and get registered and join us from the Western Ag Network. We're going to be down there too by visiting sheepusa.org. Continuing our discussion from this year's Montana Wool Growers Association's annual convention here in Billings, our guest now is no stranger to sheep and wool producers across Western Ag Network country. It's Larry Prager with Center of the Nation Wool. Of course, they have warehouses here in Billings and also in Belfouche, South Dakota, and they're just a leader when it comes to wool buying and merchandising and just helping producers, get that wool clip marketed every year. Larry, we've been talking with some of the producers and producer leaders on the policy side about this live lamb market coming back a little bit as we wind 2022 down. Unfortunately, this wool market is just not there yet. Talk about what's been going on.
I would say this, that I think across, let's just say since Labor Day 2022, we saw nobody was happy to sell wool through the springtime. We did. We had a good spring. Wool quality was good. There was no quality issues that were significantly different. But we saw, that I think if you talk to everybody across the wool trade today, the first conversation we're going to have is China. China is a big destination for wool around the world, and remains so. And of course, we all see the media reports every day. COVID lockdowns in China started in the middle of our shearing season last spring, end of March. Port of Beijing was closed through about the 1st of June, and I really hope that COVID was over, right? That was certainly my idea, that fall marketing 2022 was going to be more active. And the truth is, it just was not. COVID is still in the news every day. Why China? Why is China important? I think it's always something a lot of people maybe are unfamiliar with. As a country, we have to export about half of the wool we shear every year for processing. If everybody in the United States is running full bore, we've only got enough first stage processing, regardless of value, for about half of what we're going to shear. And so if we look behind us, 2020, our COVID year, we didn't export half the wool. 2021, we didn't. And now we're going to go through the end of 2022. We've got a lot of wool on the sidelines. Yeah. And that's where we start 2023.
It was just kind of an unfortunate speed bump, though. I mean, we look back at right before COVID really took a hold here in America. We were all down in Scottsdale, Arizona at the ASI convention there. You were there too, and God, we were just happier than hell because this wool market was hitting on all cylinders, this live market. It had really never been better for sheep producers and wool growers across America.
Right, and we thought that would last, if I remember that day. We did. And I think the truth is that we blame a lot of things on COVID, But I think in the case for wool specifically, we're still not on a global basis. We're still not over the impacts of COVID. 2 or 3 reasons why that happened. One is we started working from home, right?
Yeah.
And retail shopping was disturbed. And maybe we're past the shopping part of it, but we're still, I would call it the tailored office wear sections, some of the more traditional uses of wool. We saw some bankruptcies in retail that, you know, we're still dealing with some of that.
Well, the good news is we're just about ready to cross over into a new year, and as I've been mentioning with everybody, a new year brings new optimism,
Yep.
new hope, and
Fresh
a fresh start. So
Yeah.
I mean, with that said, I guess what's your advice, I guess, for wool growers out there when it comes to 2023 and you know,
Yeah.
as we look to the new year?
So before I came to this convention, Russell, I polled those people that I would sell wool to. You know, some people see us a wool buyer. We're truly wool sellers, you know. So I polled everybody I could, and I think the universal advice was do a good job of preparation. For those wools that are well prepared on the finer side, and we're blessed with those traditions here across Montana, we really are, that those wools are going to see an opportunity. The wools that are, let's just pick on short wool or wools that, you know, some of the other parts of the United States have real mixed bag of genetics.
Yep.
You know, those are the wools that traditionally we have called the China types. And until the doors of China become accessible to American wool, really, I mean, on a weekly basis, those wools are still going to remain, you know, hoping for an opportunity. And so we are going to, as we start 2023, we're going to have another shearing season starting almost by 1st of January, if
Yeah.
not before. And we're going to be, I think, blessed again with a good quality wool clip, you know, still coming from the ranches. And that's, at the end, we sell quality.
Yeah, yes, we absolutely do. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, what's going on with the wool market. We talk a lot about what's going on with these state associations like the Montana Wool Growers and the National Association, ASI, and boy, they're doing everything in their power to continue to increase that demand for that high quality wool. I mean, ASI's Wool Council, I mean, they've got a lot of different programs and projects. You talked about the shearing season just around the corner. We know there's kind of a limited number or a lack of sheep shearers out there. ASI is stepping up to the plate, offering some incredible grants and opportunities. I mean, can you explain how these different programs, how national associations like ASI, which you're a part of and a member of, I mean, and a supporter of, really do benefit producers on the ground?
Yeah, and I think the way I see it, quite often you need a little bit larger exposures. You know, a community somewhere will have a good idea, maybe a shearing school or a particular marketing effort for a specific end use or something. But a lot of times it takes some leadership, some dollars to get that thing expanded and put into play. And that's what we see, I think, policy. We could talk about policy, but specific to shear training. I was in Hedger, North Dakota, and I think there's one, I'm not sure if it's happened yet or not, over in Bozeman at MSU, shear training. And even though these are not maybe very many participants, you know, if every time we had a shearing school, if we could just get one shear,
That's right.
makes a huge difference. And Montana has capitalized on that for a long time. You know, we've got local shearers in Montana that some of the other states have not done some of that groundwork, and they're having some crisis issues in other areas across the United States.
Just wrapping things up, anything specifically going on at Center of the Nation Wool, whether over there in Belfouche, South Dakota, here in Billings, you want to just talk a little bit about before we say goodbye?
Yeah, you know, for us as a company, of course, you know, we're sitting at the front row across Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming. Those are the areas that we trade in. Those are the heart of our industry here. We are blessed with production traditions, good wool, well prepared, well shorn. And I think as we start 2023, for us, sometimes we take that base for granted, but we have to, I mean, I think we have to capitalize on that, because I think we're going to go into 23 with a lot of the same issues that we've just talked about unsolved. Will we have access to the Chinese market? If we don't, then the lifeblood is going to be the military
Yeah.
order, and that takes the fine wool genetics, well prepared from I'm just going to call it the Western wool tradition, and so we have to take those as a blessing and try and capitalize on that. I think that's going to lead the charge for 23, and hopefully somewhere in the months of 2023, the export doors will reopen. You know, we'll have a chance to get rid of some of these wools that are, you know, need to be in China or somewhere for an export opportunity.
Hey, before I forget, congratulations too on being named one of the University of Wyoming's College of Agriculture's outstanding ag leaders.
Yeah. Thank you, Russell.
Certainly
Yeah.
very deserving. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you. Appreciate
and,
that.
And have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same for you. Yeah. And cross your fingers for the wool market, Russell.
Absolutely. Cross your
Yep.
fingers. Lots of optimism for the new year, hopefully. Again, we've been visiting with Larry Prager with Center of the Nation Wool. Of course, they have wool warehouses here in Billings, Montana, and also in Belfouche, South Dakota, but really serving, you know, the U.S. sheep industry out here in Western Ag Network country. We've covered a lot of ground in this feature this weekend, you know, both from the policy side, talking about live lambs, and now with Larry with the wool side. You know, don't sit on the sidelines. You know, become a member of your state association, in this case, like the Montana Wool Growers Association. Become a member of the National Association, the ASI, and help make our voice heard and make it heard loud and clear out here in rural America. From the Montana Wool Growers Association's annual convention, have a great day.